Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another video. Now this video is titled Things You Didn't Know You Could See and Do in Australia. So perhaps some unique ideas that you've never heard of before, or maybe you did know they existed in Australia but don't know exactly where in the country you can go and see it. So I hope you enjoy. Alright, so let's start where we are now in the state of Victoria, not just my living room. Given the sheer size of Australia, there are so many different seasons and microclimates within the one country. And what a lot of people don't realise is in the winter time down south here, we have an amazing snow season. So you've got destinations such as Lake Mountain, Falls Creek, Mount Hotham, Mount Buller, Mount Baw Baw and more, and also some amazing snow destinations in New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory. So basically here in Melbourne, in the summertime we go surfing, in the wintertime we go skiing. They don't get snow at all up north because it's a tropical climate and completely different to what we have down south here. Of course, if you want to go to one of the top snow destinations in the world, you go next door to New Zealand. But a lot of people don't realize this at all, that you can do this down south, and it is a really fun time and beautiful scenery. Now, an activity that's really culturally significant that you can do here in Victoria is to pan for gold. So in the 1850s, gold was first discovered here in Victoria, about 3 hours out of Melbourne, and it is a huge reason why Melbourne is the kind of city that you can see and explore today. So very historically significant, and you can go to a place called Sovereign Hill just outside of the town of Ballarat, where the gold was first discovered back in the 1850s. And they teach you how to pan for gold. And when I did it younger, I did find some gold, and I was able to keep the little specks of gold in a flask, which I still have today. So it's a really awesome kind of travel memento and something quite interesting to do and learn about the historical significance of the gold rush history here in Victoria. And now onto the state of New South Wales, where in the Byron Bay hinterland area, they have a place called Crystal Castle and the Shambhala Gardens. It's a very magical and tranquil kind of park experience where they have the world's biggest natural crystals that you can go and see. And it's so typical of the Byron Bay kind of lifestyle and ideology, I guess you could say. So that is something very unique that you've probably never experienced before, and it is in the Byron Bay area, which is a must-do destination regardless if you're traveling in Australia. So keep in mind Crystal Castle. Now also in New South Wales, about an hour's drive south of Sydney in the town of Lilyvale on the coastline, you have the Figure 8 pools, which is a natural figuration in the rock pools in a huge number 8 formation, and it's an incredibly Instagrammable spot to go and see, but also the coastline is just beautiful anyway, so it's a definite destination outside of Sydney that we recommend. Okay, moving on to the state of Tasmania. Now, a lot of people miss out on traveling to Tasmania just because perhaps they run out of time, or they're daunted by the idea of having to fly over the ocean onto another island away from the mainland. But if you do make the journey over, it is worth it. It has so much to offer, and the number one being our own version of the Northern Lights. So in Tasmania, it's called the Aurora Australis, and it is most common in between the months of March and September, so predominantly over winter time. And if the stars align and the conditions are perfect, you can see the Southern Lights in Tasmania. It is very rare, but also possible that you can see them sometimes from the state of Victoria, but more common in Tasmania because it is that much further down south. And the best viewpoint to see the Southern Lights, or the Aurora Australis, is from Mount Wellington, the highest peak outside of the capital city of Hobart. Now, a must-do while you are in Tasmania is go and check out Mona Museum. It stands for the Museum of Old and New Art. It is owned, created and funded purely by a guy named David Walsh, who is a professional gambler and an art collector, and it is the most abstract, creative, kind of mind-blowing art gallery museum that you've probably ever seen. It's the largest privately funded museum in the entire Southern Hemisphere, and even the location that David Walsh has chosen for Mona is so unique. You have to take a ferry outside of the city of Hobart, and it's on its own kind of privately secluded island. It is a must do. It's called Mona. You are welcome. And now on to the state of Queensland. I mean, there is just so much to choose from in that one state alone, but we can only pick a couple. So the lava tubes is a must-see, very unique experience and something that you might not have expected to be there. The Ndara lava tubes are located in the Ndara Volcanic National Park in North Queensland, and it's basically where the natural landscape has evolved to form the most spectacular underground cave network. So you can join a tour, learn about it, and explore the lava caves in Queensland. Okay, also in Queensland, and something incredibly unique that I actually didn't realize existed before we delved into our own research, is a place called the Spanish Castle, or Paranella Park. So Jose Paranella first arrived in Australia in 1913 from Catalonia in Spain, and he stumbled upon this area in Queensland and he just fell in love with the landscape and how majestic it was, and he had a dream to turn it into kind of like a magical park oasis for the public to actually enjoy and visit. So in 1929 he purchased this land for £120, which is ridiculous nowadays, and he turned it into exactly what he had envisioned. From what I can tell on their website and the photos, it reminds me of a scene from, you know, those old Lara Croft Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie, where she goes into the rainforest and explores the temples. They've got vines draped over all the temples. It reminds me of a scene out of that, so it's definitely on my list now, called Paranella Park in Queensland. Okay, so in the Northern Territory now, about an hour's drive out of the city of Darwin, you've got the Adelaide River. This is where you get to see the modern day dinosaurs, the saltwater crocodiles. You are not ready for the size of these bad boys, and what you can do is join what's called a jumping croc experience, or a tour, whereby you are sailing down the Adelaide River on a boat. You're just cruising down, you get to see the saltwater crocs in their natural habitat, and then at some point the captain or the tour guide will dangle a piece of meat over the side of the boat, and you get to see the most amazing phenomenon of this huge saltwater croc launching itself meters into the air to grab this piece of meat. It is one of those experiences that I will never ever forget, and I did it on a school trip, believe it or not, back in the day, and I highly recommend it, and that is in the Northern Territory. Now, a part of the Northern Territory, about 80 kilometres north of Darwin, adjoining the Timor Sea, you have the Tiwi Islands. Every year, the Tiwi Islands host their annual Football Grand Final Festival and Art Sale. It's located in the remote Aboriginal community of Woodamyanga, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and annually it brings about 3,000 tourists over. It's such a culturally and historically significant event, and of course, Aussie rules football is so significant and popular in the entire country, but especially in the Tiwi Islands as well. So I'm sure the people that have experienced an event like this have said it's one for the books, and definitely more of a unique experience that perhaps not a lot of people have thought of or even heard of before. So that is the annual Football Grand Final Festival and Art Sale in the Tiwi Islands. Okay, and moving over to Western Australia, and again there is just so much to choose from in the state of WA, but this one is for the nature and the science lovers and just nerds in general. Stromatolites. So the word stromatolites is Greek for layered rock, and the Hamelin Pools stromatolites are located in the Shark Bay World Heritage Area of Western Australia, and they are basically the oldest and the largest living fossils on Earth. So for science lovers, what they basically mean is they're the modern day examples of the earliest known life forms on this Earth. So they are an incredibly significant part of our Earth's evolutionary history. Also in Western Australia, you've got the Bungle Bungles, or Purnululu National Park, which is located in the Kimberley region of the state. This landscape has been described as an incomparable natural phenomenon. The area is so remote that it wasn't actually found by non-Indigenous peoples until 1983, when a Western film crew ventured into the area and realised what the outside world had never ever discovered before. The area is World Heritage listed, and it's around 450 square kilometres of humongous beehive shaped domes formed out of cast natural sandstone, and they can rise up to 250 meters above the ground. So it's a natural landscape that you will never ever expect to even exist, and you won't find it anywhere else in the world. And finally we head over to South Australia, and there is a location called the Sunken Garden. This is also known as a sinkhole or a cenote, similar to the ones that are so popular to visit in Mexico. Basically, this garden was once a cave formed through the dissolution of the limestone. Then at some point the Sunken Garden was created when the top chamber collapsed, and now it looks like sort of a mystical garden oasis that you can go visit. It's located in Mount Gambier, which is just over the border from Victoria into South Australia. And now possibly one of the most unreal experiences you can do is head to a town called Queensland in South Australia, which is a mining town because in 1915 they found the first opal there, and it since has supplied most of the world's gem quality opal stones. But because of the area and the harsh climate being a strong desert dry heat, they just couldn't sustain a comfortable lifestyle if it was just a normal town built above ground. So they built most of the town and lived underground. 80% of the population and the entire mining town lived underground to just escape from the harsh desert sun and heat. And this is an experience that you can do yourself. You can live underground in the cave-like accommodation and just see what it's really been like for the town of Queensland. Okay team, we've left the best category to last, and that is wildlife. So of course Australia has some of the most amazing and unique wildlife in the world, and perhaps you already knew about some of these, but everyone needs to know about them. So we'll start off with the king of the ocean, the great white shark. So you can go cage diving beside the great white sharks in an area called Port Lincoln, which is in South Australia. On a map, it looks like it's a short drive from the capital city of Adelaide, but it is about 7 hours. Or you can catch the ferry across to Port Lincoln. And next we have its cousin, the whale sharks, the nicer version, the puppies of the sea. They can be found in Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia, and Ningaloo Reef is comparable to the Great Barrier Reef, in fact just as good, some argue better, but it's on the other side of the country and a little bit harder to get to, but that is a habitat of the amazing whale sharks, and there's so many tours that you can go out and explore them with and just see them in their natural habitat. And now let's transition to something a lot smaller, my personal favorites, the little penguins. And we get to see the little penguins on our Welcome to Melbourne, the 8-day tour. They are down in Phillip Island, and they are the smallest species of penguin in the world. They only grow up to a maximum of 30 centimeters tall, and they are adorable. One of the biggest colonies does live down in Phillip Island here in Victoria. So penguins in general in the world can only be found in the southern hemisphere. So if you are down here in Melbourne, you can easily do a day trip outside of the city to Phillip Island to see the smallest penguins in the world and one of the biggest colonies of this species. Now let's cross over again to the other side of the country into Western Australia, and outside of the capital city of Perth you have an island called Rottnest Island, and that is home to the #1 voted cutest animal in Australia, the quokka. If you haven't seen a photo of a quokka before, we'll put it here. It's the animal that Chris Hemsworth got the famous selfie with. They live on Rottnest Island. They are arguably the cutest animals you can find in Australia. And now I'll finish up on an animal that you definitely should not take a selfie with. In fact, not approach or go close to. Just enjoy seeing it if you've got the luck of spotting one in its natural habitat. Just enjoy it from a distance. It's the cassowary. It is the closest thing to looking like a prehistoric bird that you will find anywhere in the world, and it lives in far north Queensland, so the area around the Daintree rainforest, Cape Tribulation. They sometimes go as far south as Mission Beach area, I believe. They are an unreal reminder of what prehistoric birds used to be like, and they still exist. And if you stumble upon one and it's got its chicks nearby, please know that it's going to be extra territorial and cautious of you because it's wanting to protect its chicks. But if you are a nature lover, this is an unreal bird that you can see, and it's only found in Queensland in Australia. Okay champions, that's all from me for another video. I hope you found this one interesting. I definitely had a lot of fun researching and finding out about these unique destinations in the country that I'd never heard of before. I'm constantly mind blown by the uniqueness and diversity of my home country. And of course, if you've traveled to a destination in Australia that you think has been really unique, relatively unpopular from a tourism or backpacker point of view and not as well known, then please can you let us know about it? Comment below. I'd love to do a little bit more research about some more unique destinations. And of course, if you have any questions about travel, Australia, working holiday visas, just anything in general, don't be afraid to slide into our DMs. We love answering your questions and helping you guys out. It's literally why we're here. And of course, thank you for putting up with my sexy apartment once again. I've tried to mix it up a little bit today, but you know how lockdown is, we'll get through it. Like and subscribe, you know, all that jazz that the influencers try and do. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.